I feel so badly. He's got some difficulty. There was an accident, and that's all I know. Very close friend of mine. He's an amazing person, amazing man, but some difficulty.
That was President Trump on Friday reacting to the news that Tiger Woods was involved in a car crash in Florida earlier that day. Woods was arrested on suspicion of driving under the influence after his Land Rover clipped a truck and rolled onto its side. No one, thankfully, was hurt. Woods agreed to a breathalyzer, but he refused to take a urine test, which triggered the DUI charge and a 1-year suspension of his license. State law also required that he spend at least 8 hours in jail before he could post bail. The ABC affiliate in West Palm Beach reports that Woods' arraignment will be scheduled in Martin County Circuit Court sometime within the next 2 to 3 weeks. This is the fourth auto-related incident that Woods has been involved in since 2009 and his second DUI arrest. Joining us now is Dave Aronberg. He was state attorney for Palm Beach County, Florida, when Woods was last prosecuted for DUI back in 2017. Dave, good to see you. So with that as the backdrop, let's just start with your thoughts here that Tiger Woods, obviously legendary golfer, but as the president himself said, having some real difficulties right now, has been involved in yet another accident.
Jonathan, I'm just glad no one was hurt. It's really unfortunate. You know, when he had the first DUI, he went into our first offender diversion program. You only get one bite at that apple. He accepted responsibility. He completed the program, and then he won the Masters afterwards. So I was really optimistic. Now, with this arrest, I do think he has a decent chance at trial if it ever goes there, because he blew a 0.00 on the breathalyzer. And without the alcohol, prosecutors are going to have to prove impairment by a chemical substance. And that's where urinalysis would be helpful. But Tiger Woods did not submit to a urinalysis. So that's going to make it a lot harder for prosecutors here. They're going to have to rely on the subjective testimony of officers on the scene saying he looked disoriented and lethargic, and the video of Woods failing the roadside sobriety tests. The defense, however, will be that Woods had just been in a rollover accident, and he's had a long documented history of sports injuries and multiple surgeries. So that would make it tough for him to balance on one leg or walk and turn, even if he wasn't just in a major car accident. So actually, I think he's got a real chance of either getting a not guilty at trial or perhaps getting the evidence suppressed and having the charges dropped in advance of trial.
So, I mean, Dave, you make really good points there about the potential successful legal defense he could mount. But what would be in the court of public opinion? What do you say, I guess, or if you were advising Tiger Woods to say, considering this is kept happening now, yes, we're fortunate that he and no one else was injured here. But there's a lot of people in the country right now who are like, well, first of all, Tiger Woods, he could afford a driver. He should just have one. But also like that he's taking not only his own life, but other people's lives in his hands repeatedly now when he gets behind the steering wheel.
I've heard it a lot about how celebrities, wealthy individuals should always have a driver. And Tiger Woods, based on the past, he should, although he was right near his home. And so perhaps this was something he was doing, thinking this is just right near where he lives. Also, I don't know whether his doctor told him that he's okay to drive and he doesn't need a driver. I don't know. But clearly in the court of public opinion, this is a problem. He still has his fans, though, who are rooting for him through this. And as far as his previous DUI that was pled down to reckless driving and a withheld adjudication, that would not come into court if this goes to trial. That would be inadmissible unless he opens the door to it, which is not going to happen. But that previous arrest in 2017, I think, may have played a role here because law enforcement watches and reads the same stuff we do, and perhaps it persuaded police to transition an accident investigation into a criminal DUI one. And that's where it could actually help Tiger Woods, because his lawyers could say, hey, you based this arrest not on what happened 3 days ago, but what happened 9 years ago.
So, Mark Leibovich, obviously Tiger Woods' resume as a golfer is second to none. But there are real concerns. We have seen his body break down. He has had multiple back surgeries. Joe and I were talking earlier in the show about, being on painkillers and the like. There's real fear that Tiger Woods, that's what perhaps is going on here. This is someone who is suffering, but also someone who has his demons, and someone whose career remains remarkable, but whose life has taken some really sad turns.
Yeah, I mean, let's make a few points here. I mean, there are a lot of elite athletes out there in their 40s and 50s and 60s whose bodies have broken down, who are still trying to hang on in some capacity, who are not going out and doing this. I mean, yes, he's an elite golfer. He's also a very problematic driver at this point, let's just say. And look, this is a long-running, decades-old story, and you just hope it's not going to culminate in something truly tragic, which is someone getting seriously injured or killed or something that, these things can sometimes lead to, which obviously, I mean, yes, there's all kinds of legal nuance and defenses that he will, I'm sure, avail himself of. I mean, I think what Dave just said is compelling and probably indicates that he's going to, walk in some ways. I mean, he'll have some punishment, but he's probably not going to do jail time over this. But I think, look, it's a larger kind of tragic story in our culture. And the fact is that, like Donald Trump, like a lot of sort of celebrities, like a lot of people who are perceived to be wealthy and privileged and who are, he has a lot of followers. I mean, the sort of golf culture kind of reveres him still. It's just going to be sort of the big sort of cultural footprint that he leaves over many years. But ultimately, you just hope no one gets really hurt or killed over it.
Hey, Dave, I want to come back to a question to a thing you just raised a second ago, which I think is kind of incredible. I'm sure it's true, but let's hypothesize the possibility that Tiger Woods is in fact taking a lot of painkillers, he's taking way too many Vicodin or way too many Percocet or whatever it is, but he's not drinking, right? That the correct from his point of view, by refusing to do a urine test, by refusing to basically take a drug test, that excludes that evidence from trial, and so therefore there's no way in which the prosecution can use the fact that he refused to take the urinalysis as part of the evidence against him. It seems like that's a giant loophole if simply by refusing, knowing that you're over medicated, so to speak, that you just refuse to take the urinalysis, and therefore you basically have you strengthen your defense by doing that. It's kind of incredible to me that that's the way it works on these kind of cases.
John, the refusal to take the urinalysis would come into court, and it would make him look bad in court in front of the jury. So that's a negative inference. But there's also something on the other side here. So Florida law, it's new in 2025, now criminalizes the refusal to submit to a urinalysis. So that's another charge here. It's a low-level second-degree misdemeanor, punishable by only up to 60 days in jail. But that's something he's going to have to deal with. The refusal to submit to the urinalysis is in itself a crime, and that would come into a courtroom. But the defense here is going to be that they're going to say there was never probable cause to make an arrest to begin with. He was disoriented because of the crash, not because he was taking any pills. He has all these injuries. And so there should never have been an arrest to begin with, because the refusal to submit to urinalysis took place after the arrest. And so they're going to say that that refusal is what you call fruit of the poisonous tree. There should never have been arrest, so everything after that is moot and should be suppressed. So it's a good question on your part, John. It would come into court, but it's up to the judge whether to allow it or to throw it out.